Hello, good evening, and welcome back. And in our continued journey of working with reading skills and generally having fun with CAT passages, we are now currently working on CAT 20 passages. Before one can always sit through a RC discussion anyway, it's going to be 100% run through the passage. But as of this point of time, my minimum requirement, especially for a course member, is the following: that you must go through the fundamental section, you must know the basic terms like general, specific, the use of conjunctions, tracking a pronoun, how to tackle difficult passages, how to go line by line or paragraph by paragraph and wade through also. Because sometimes it's easy and sometimes you want to work on reasonably difficult passages as well, right? So all of that is covered in the fundamental section. Add to that a reasonable amount of critical reasoning practice, thorough 7 days a week, maybe 2 hours a day kind of a practice where you are very familiar with basic critical thinking tools. Some RC practice anyway, you have gone through enough number of passages. This is not a beginner's session, this is the end of the season kind of a thing, right? And highly recommended are these CAT 17, 18, 19 RC workshops, or any related, for example, summary selection questions as well. Those are very important, great practice, perfect explanation. So that is the kind of work I'm assuming that has already been done, right? So this is and continuation of that journey. So in case you haven't done this work, please give it a couple of weeks, give it the same kind of commitment you would give to maybe quant and or DILR if you're worried about it. Follow it up and I can promise a bump in scores in a couple of weeks, right, if that basic work has been done. So with that, let me say hi, hello, and today's agenda once again is to work with our CAT 20 passage and just read it, have fun with it, try out a few questions as we usually do. If you've gone through the previous workshops, then you're very familiar with the format already. The thing with any RC passage is that anyone can obviously just listen to that particular session and even that would make sense, but this is the prerequisite for the full experience as such. The file for today's work was shared earlier in the day. There were two of them, I think. So let me put them on screen. This is CAT 20 VARC section slot 1, the third passage. The sheet was shared earlier. For any live session, there is always mostly a share earlier so that nobody is in a hurry and they've gone through the passage already. So that maybe the second time reading anyway is always better, right? In case you haven't already done so, you can always find the passage later or take your time, read the passage and then join the discussion. Right, so shall we start? And I think this is a prime example of an easy passage, what I would call a straightforward, quick reading passage. Sentences will not challenge you. Do note down that sometimes the challenge is just a single sentence, trying to interpret it well, and it's worth your time to read it twice, thrice, 4 times. Pay attention to only that part, right? As we saw in the previous workshop. But such a passage is very easy to read. Even as you preview it, you will figure out that the language is easy, the ideas are easy as such. Right, so let's dive into the passage and I'm going to apply everything that we normally do, that my brain does while reading anyway as a good reader. And there's beyond comprehension, there's not too much of a goal. That means my final goal is I want to understand everything well, even though this passage can be done fairly quickly even after the preview, right? So what is preview? Preview is reading a little from across the passage before committing fully to any one paragraph to get a broad idea of what is going on so that my brain is warmed up. The idea has been covered earlier in every passage discussion as such, right? So few realize that the government of China, governing an empire of some 60 million people during the Tang dynasty, implemented a complex financial system that recognized grains, coins, and textiles as money. So maybe it's about China, maybe it's about money, maybe it's about economy. I want to jump to the next paragraph. The sentence did not present a challenge to me at all, right? As coins had advantages and disadvantages, great. As coins had advantages and disadvantages, that means maybe in the previous paragraph, right? This is active reading. That means whatever I'm reading is going to help me deduce something. So as I read this line, right? Because in the very first sentence I saw grains, coins, and textiles as money. Let me pay attention to this. And now, as coins has advantages and disadvantages, I'm guessing that somewhere in this part, advantages and disadvantages of coins have been elaborated. If you want to test what I'm saying, right, whether I'm right or wrong, you can always stop, pause, read this part of the story and confirm for yourself, right? Because none of this is vague advice. This is what is known as an inference. I haven't seen this episode of the TV show, but this episode began by saying as coins had advantages and disadvantages. I can conclude the previous episode. I can already see it. Coins did have certain advantages, and later I'll find disadvantages also. So too did textiles. I will stop right now and apply a very basic idea, right? That is, I am looking at a general plus specific, or idea plus elaboration structure. So coins had advantages and disadvantages is a conclusion that I'm making about the previous paragraph. And now it says, so too did textiles. That means in the rest of the paragraph, I am going to be discussing what? Let me see what you have to say about it. Right, this is what we want to master, right? As I read this line, I can predict, right? Somewhere write the skills that we are practicing. Predicting. How to predict. The paragraph is always telling you what is happening, right? So as I read this line, as coins had advantages and disadvantages, so too did textiles. I see that the whole paragraph most likely is going to be about advantages and disadvantages, or maybe just one of them, of textiles. But textiles had some advantages over coins. So if I look at the first line, grains, coins, and textile, coins and textile, we are discussing their advantages and disadvantages as a form of money. I haven't read any details, and yes, I'm elaborating a lot more, but I'm trying to express what happens in the brain of a reader who's making deductions while reading, right? Active reading. So again, in this part of the story, I'm already mapping it out that, okay, these are the areas that the story pockets lie, right? In this paragraph, I'm going to get advantages of textile over the coin. The government also required the use of textiles for large transactions. Coins, on the other hand, is lovely. It tells me a contrast, and once again the contrast is between textiles and coins. Though if I pay attention to my original sentence, there was grain also. So if I can predict in the rest of the paragraph somewhere, grains also will be mentioned. So the government also required the use of textiles for large transactions. Coins, on the other hand, were better suited for smaller transactions, and possibly given cost of transporting coins for a more local usage. Okay, so easy enough idea also. Again, I'm not in the heavy reading stage. I'm just in the light reading, previewing the passage, right? Grain, because it rotted easily, was not used nearly. So now I also have the grain story. Great, I have enough of an idea. Can you tell me what the passage is about? What could be the central idea already? So what are the skills in action right now? Previewing and predicting. Let me change the color for this. So I've done a very short preview, and I already have the central idea of the passage, that we are talking about advantages, disadvantages of various forms of money used in this China Tang dynasty. Now, after that beginning story, China is not very important, Tang dynasty is not very important. It's about the advantages and disadvantages of coin and textile as the currency used by the government. Coins, textile, and grains. Now, what I also want to learn, because reading is great, one should always read a lot, be aware of what is going on in the world, read a lot of books to develop personality. But in the test scenario, my goal is to get a score right. I want to get the questions right. That is my primary agenda. So, because the passage was so easy and I have it reasonably mapped out, first paragraph, advantages, disadvantages of coins, maybe. Second paragraph, again, maybe disadvantages of textile. Third paragraph, advantages of textile over coin. And fourth paragraph, continuing that same comparison. So I know the general idea. Maybe I can move towards the question and start attempting then and read according to need, right? I know where the information lies. If there is a question about it, let me go and read it in more detail, rather than fully investing time again and then leaving the questions for later. I want to hit the questions as quickly as possible. And in a passage like this, where it's easy reading, that is highly recommended. Or you can try these strategies by yourself also, right? So, so in the excuse me, starting with just previewing the questions as well. In the context of the passage, which of the following can be inferred with the regard to the use of currency during the Tang era? Okay, currency usage was similar to that of modern times. Don't reject this choice, but remember, we haven't read the last paragraph at all right now, and I'm right now previewing the question so that I know where I have to read carefully, right? Option 2, currency that deteriorated easily was not used for official work. So maybe somewhere I'll find, because I haven't read anything at all, I'm just taking my chances with just whatever I've read. Can I try out a question, right? So I will have to check this. Copper coins were more valuable and durable than textiles. I still don't know anything because I haven't gone into details. Grains were the most used currency because of the government requirements. Okay, I have no idea, right? According to the passage, the modern currency system shares all of the following features with that of the Tang. Modern currency I did not see anywhere. So there is this last paragraph. Let me quickly run through that as well. In actuality, our own currency system today, that means the modern currency, has some similarities even as it is changing in front of our eyes. We have cash, coins for small transactions like paying for parking at a meter, and banknotes for other items. Easy sentence. Checks and debit, different kinds of format, just as the Tang dynasty had different kind of formats. Tang dynasty. At the same time, we are shifting to electronic banking and making payments online. So even this, I'm saying easy reading. What do I mean by that? Because once I get the idea that we have different kinds of currencies, that idea I've already seen in the beginning of the passage, I'm already ready to consume this idea. And with that, I have captured the last paragraph as well, right? So according to the passage, the modern currency system. So please get comfortable with reading back and forth as well between the question, tackling the passage, visiting the question again. And it's essentially a game of just concentration and being involved with the process, right? According to the passage, the modern currency system shares all of the following features with that of the Tang, except that it uses different materials as currency. Its currencies fluctuate in value over time. It uses I should stop also, no? It uses different currencies for different situations. I saw this. It uses different currencies for different situations, right? So whatever little I've read, something I can match. It is undergoing transformation. Okay, so I'll come back to it. When discussing textiles as currency in the Tang period, the author uses the word steady and stable to indicate all of the following. So I know where textiles are. This is the first two questions were looking at broad inferences, but this one I know where that area of information is. He's talking about textiles as currency, and I'm looking for the words steady and stable, right? So let me visit the passage again. I know where it is, it's in the second paragraph, and I see stable here because I'm looking for the word stable in my head, so it was easy to find. But the paragraph is easy enough. Let me read it in detail as well. So textiles has some advantage over coins. For a start, textile production was widespread and there were fewer problems with the supply of textiles. So maybe there is a problem with the supply of coins or the material that is required. For large transactions, textile weighed less than their equivalent in coins, so since a string of coins could weigh as much as 4 kg. So easy enough. You read the sentence, you will understand, okay, textile has disadvantages. It is more compact than the weight of the coin. Furthermore, the dimensions of a bolt of silk held remarkably steady, right? So I see the word steady and I see the word stable. And the question was about these two words. So furthermore, the dimensions of a bolt of silk held remarkably steady from the 3rd to the 10th century. That means the size remained the same. That means it is easy to trade. Everybody has the same size understanding, right? And the values of textiles were also more stable than the fluctuating value of coins. So the value of coins is fluctuating and the size of the bolt of silk, that what is the measurement, has also remained fairly steady, right? So now with this idea in mind, can I visit the question and try out the options? Let me give you a minute or two to try this out. You just read the required paragraph. The point that I was trying to make is that you can also read according to the question, right? This question, that paragraph, read it again, come back to this question and see what happens. So when discussing textiles as currency in the Tang period, the author uses the words steady and stable to indicate all of the following except reliable supply, reliable measurements. Reliable measurement is part of the story, right? The dimensions were fixed. So I know this is not the option. Reliable quality. Do I have some answers? Reliable supply as well. I go back to the paragraph. For a start, textile production was widespread and there were fewer problems with the supply. So reliable supply, yes. Can this be the answer? No. Now between these two options, just have to pick one. See? Now, if I go back to that paragraph and I pay attention, read carefully, I will see that we are not talking about reliability in transportation. Yes, there is a problem of weight. Coins are heavier, but nowhere did the paragraph or the passage say that carrying them or transporting them was problematic in any way, right? So I don't see transportation anywhere, and my answer should be option D. Are we okay with this? So again, staying with that same idea, during the Tang period, which one of the following would not be an economically sound decision for a small purchase in the local market that is worth 1/8 of a bolt of cloth? So bolt of cloth, that means we are talking about textile. So let me go back to that textile story. I have already read half of it. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to break that linear pattern, even though it's not very effective right now. That means I can read a little, understand it, my memory will not fail me, and I can go back, right? So I already read about the advantages here. Let me read about the other features, maybe disadvantages. The government also required the use of textiles for large transactions. Coins, on the other hand, were better suited for smaller transactions. and possibly given the cost of transporting coins for a more local usage. So coins for local, coins for small, textile for global, for distances maybe, and textile for large transaction. And then it goes into grain. I will read that later. Let me read it now only, it's so easy. Grain, because it rotted easily, was not used nearly as much as coins and textiles, but taxpayers were required to pay grain to the government as a share of their tax, and official salaries were also in grain. So grain at disadvantage, rotted easily, that's why it was not used too much, but still was in use in certain forms. So I'm reading about the textiles, and let's see what else is there. This is also textile. So too did textiles, right? If in circulation for a long period of time, they could show signs of wear and tear. This is a disadvantage of the textile. Stained, faded and torn bolts of textiles had less value than brand new bolts, so disadvantage. Furthermore, a full bolt had a particular value. If consumers cut textiles into smaller pieces to buy or sell something worth less than a full bolt, that too greatly lessened the value of textiles. This is where my answer lies for the question that we looked at, right? So if you cut the bolt into smaller pieces, you will lose value. I'm not saying you have to read like this. I'm just shaking up the process. Even if you read it in order, you would have read this and you would have remembered that the best idea is to use a full bolt, and the dimensions of all the bolt were also given earlier. Unlike coins, textiles could not be used for small transactions. Okay, great. Let me visit the question again and let me wait for your answers. This is question number 4 and I'm waiting for your answers. Would not be an economically sound decision for a small purchase. You want to do a small purchase, which of them is not the right decision? That means the three of them will be right and one of them will be absolutely pointless. I think the answer should be A, yes. Why? Because I just read that if you don't have a full bolt, the value was reduced drastically. So I don't want to, in any situation, cut a piece of my bolt, right? That standard measurement. So cutting a piece of cloth is not a great idea. I already know using the coins is okay, using grains is also okay, right? So making the payment with the appropriate weight of grain, not a problem. Using coins issued by the government to make the payment, coins are used for small transaction. This is a small transaction. Paying with a faded bolt of cloth that has approximately the same value. I have no idea about the changes, how, by what value, what fraction does the value change. But cutting is definitely not a great idea, right? So I will eliminate cutting as the option and that would be my right choice. Right? So what I'm trying to say by this experiment is that I haven't still read everything and I still haven't read everything in order. I still haven't read the full first paragraph in detail, though in such a passage this technique wasn't even required. Just a straight reading once and then reading again according to the questions would be sufficient as such, but we want to basically work with our process as much as possible, right? So these two questions, I know where they lie. And of course, if your reading is not that strong, it is recommended you go back and check and be very clear. If you're not clear, don't mark the answer, right? Like in the beginning at least. And this marking the answer with this 50-60% clarity is the reason for the fluctuating scores. So if your scores are going up and down, that means it's chance based right now, right? So work on clarity. Somebody was asking that why not reliable quality? Because the value of the bolt of textiles were fairly constant, so I'm assuming the quality was also fairly constant, or quality has been mentioned, right? Like new bolt, the piece of a new fresh bolt of cloth and what happens when it gets faded as such. But transportation was not mentioned at all. That I'm calling it steady and stable because of the transportation. I'm calling it steady and stable because the value or the measurement and the value has remained the same. So that part was not covered in the story, right? So now I have read enough, and if there was a doubt, I can always visit various part of the paragraphs, passages. Let me check out the first question. In the context of the passage, which one of the following can be inferred with the regard to use of the currency during the Tang era? Currency usage was similar to that of modern times. I know this for sure because I saw the last paragraph. That's where he was trying to say that even modern day currency usage is very similar to the Tang dynasty system. You have coins for small transaction, 500 rupee note for bigger transactions. For bigger money, you use like a GPay or something, and then after that, you have to write a check, and even after that, you might make a demand draft or something, right? And then whatever else is the next level. But let me also run through the other options and see whether they work or not. Currency that deteriorated easily was not used for official work. Let me read that again. I remember grain deteriorated easily, but it is not used widespread, but it is used for official work. Even textile deteriorates. I read somewhere that the quality over a period of time will go down, but it is still being used for official work. So currency that deteriorated easily was not used for official work is not true according to the passage. Copper coins were more valuable and durable than textiles. Copper coins could be more durable than textiles, but copper and textiles were both currency. So how can you say copper coins in general were more valuable? And again, you can check the passage and you will see it is not supported anywhere. Grains were the most used currency because of government requirements. Check the part on grains. It's only one sentence. Read it again. You will see that it was compulsory part of the government taxation, and the salaries were measured, but it wasn't widespread. Grain, because it rotted easily, was not used nearly as much as coins and textiles. So coins and textiles were used more. Here it says grains were the most used currency because of government requirements. So the answer is not very important. The answer we got already. The process, what am I doing? I'm confirming again, looking at that sentence, and often it's about just zooming into one piece of information and confirming it with the option choices as such, right? So be aware of doing that and running that process, and not just answering from the gut ki, oh yes, it feels right. Double check, spend that 1 minute extra, read slowly in fact, right? Are we okay with question number 1? So question number 2. So as I read other pieces, even the question number 1 got worked out for me, right? Question number 2. According to the passage, the modern currency system shares all the following features with that of the Tang except that. Take a shot first. Sayam is saying, why not B? I just said currency that deteriorated easily. It says was not used for official work. Grain, it rotted easily, was not used as much as others, but it was used. And the same thing for textiles as well. Textiles deteriorated, but they were used. So how can you say that currencies that deteriorated easily was not used for official work? It was used for official work, right? Back to question number 2. So let's go step by step. It uses different materials as currency. Yes, old system I know already. The Tang system already uses textiles and grain and coins. And our modern system also, I read the last paragraph. We have cash, coins for small transactions, banknotes for other items, checks and debits, and credit card for other larger type of payments. We're shifting to banking and making payments online. Some people have never seen cash. So, do we use different materials as currency? Do both the modern and the old system? Yes. Its currencies fluctuate in value over time. Yes. Currencies fluctuate over time. I know that the Chinese currency was fluctuating definitely, and modern currency, even though it's not given directly in the passage as such anywhere, but I know currencies, modern currencies fluctuate over time. It uses different currencies for different situations, definitively. It is undergoing transformation. I don't know what that means actually. It's just not a great choice. So, my answer would be option 4 as well. Now, just for fun, let's so notice that I did not go through this part of the story too much, and I was still able to answer the questions. The point being that you don't have to read everything. If you have the time, if you have the momentum, if the passage is easy to read, great, read everything. But just as trying to make an argument that you can do with pockets also, as long as you have the map of the territory. It's like having the map of the whole battle scenario. Wherever the battle is important, I want to send my whole army there, right? Not spread it all over the whole terrain as such. So that would be the idea. But just for fun, coins did have certain advantages. They were durable. So coins were durable, textiles are not durable. Recognizable and provided a convenient medium of exchange, especially for smaller transactions. Coins for smaller, cloth for textile for bigger. However, there were also disadvantages. So I know one, by the way, however, is a twist in the story. In such a passage, I don't even have to apply that conjunction kind of a theory because it's so easy to read, right? There were also disadvantages. A continuing shortage of copper meant that government mints could not produce enough coins for the empire. That coins constituted only a tenth of the money supply. Wow. One of the main objections to call for taxes to be paid on coin was that peasant producers who could weave cloth or grow grain, the other two major currencies of the time, would not be able to produce coins and therefore would not be able to pay their taxes. So easy in a story, and the follow-up homework could be reading more about currencies, reading more about China. Always read a little extra around whatever you're doing, right? And in case, I would suggest trying out the passage one more time by yourself and looking at these choices carefully, right? Wherever, let's say if you had a conflict with the correct answer, take a look at it again and try and spot those personal mental errors being played out, right? Okay, what is a mistake that I'm making? Why didn't I choose the right one? What confused me? And then we can start working on eliminating that issue. Okay, so that's it for this session. There is one more passage that was shared that will be discussed tomorrow, maybe, yeah, tomorrow, same time at 5 o'clock. And please read it, try and struggle with it, and then come to the discussion. It will be way more fruitful, right? Right, so that's it for this particular little session. Your goals should remain the same. Finish, make sure, I'm assuming fundamental section, obviously everybody has finished. Now, as much as possible, try and finish the sections of each course. And let's say if you try a CAT 18 passage, you try it out, you get 3 out of 4. Even if you get 4 out of 4, do watch the discussion. Because it will simplify the process, it will make even like at a sentence level everything clear, so that you know what clarity feels like, you know when you know for sure that the answer is right, or you have a very good picture of the passage, right? So even if the passage is easy sometimes, I'm sure when it's difficult you would want to watch the discussion anyway. but it's just satsangati, right? Like a person who reads well, he's analyzing the passage. So with each passage or each workshop, you will learn something or the other. So make sure that even if the passage is easy, you're going through the discussion. Otherwise, it's already too much, right? It's already hitting on like 60 hours or something. So make sure that all CAT passages, especially CAT 17, 18, 19, and now 20, these discussions are definitely done. And then your newspaper reading, magazine reading, whatever you're reading will be enough. Because if you've done these, you've done around 50 CAT passages, and if you do it in 2-3 weeks, like staggered together, then you're repeating these ideas every day. The active reading idea, the paying attention, essentially. A lot of times it's just about concentration as well, right? So then any kind of reading that you do in the parallel will like act like fuel to fire, and the process will work out fairly well. But this is compulsory, right? And if you're struggling with the logic part of it, then make sure that the critical thinking section is finished, and definitely on a daily basis learn a lot of words, right? So this is it for today. I will see you really soon. I'll post the schedule on the Telegram thingy. The passage has already been shared, and I'll share it again before the session. I announce like in good 3-4 hours in advance what passage is going to be discussed, so that nobody comes under prepared as such, right? And nobody feels stressed unnecessarily. So this is it for the day. I will see you soon. Lee.